I hope everyone is doing good. This is Pratishtha, your IELTS trainer. And in this section, we will be focusing on reading. And in reading, also, there is one very specific kind of questions that most people make mistakes in. That is the true, false, and not given kind of questions. So, in this section, we will discuss how we can find that. In previous videos, I think we have already discussed how to find the answers. I told you you can just write a one word or maybe a couple of words summary besides the passage so that you know immediately where to look for. But in this one, we will focus on particular kinds of questions. So, with that being said, let us begin. Here it is. So in this session, we will understand the true false kind of questions. Learn strategies to identify the correct answer. So we will look at some strategies. We will practice with reading passages to improve accuracy. So I'll give you an example as well. And we will also see some tips, right? So that we are able to manage the time efficiently. What is the true, false, or not given in IELTS, right? So true, false kind of question is true. The statement agrees with the information, right? That it's true. It's a fact. False if the statement does not agree with the information, and not given is when there is no information about whatever is written in the passage. So now some strategies would be to read the statements carefully, right? When you're skimming, just mark the keywords, and when you go back to the questions, you will have those keywords, right? So you will remember what is the information I need to search in the passage. So you will sort of relate. When you have read the questions, you will relate that, okay, this was the question about true and false, and these are the keywords I need to focus on in the passage. So I will mark those. Skim for relevant sections, compare information, and identify not given. You need to skim for the relevant parts. Again, if you are able to mark the keywords, you will be able to do that. You will be able to compare information as well. So after that, sorry for the break. So we are going to compare information, compare the statement with the details in the text, look for exact match or contradictions, and identifying not given. So if there's no clear information about anything related to the question, it is a not given. Now, moving forward. So read the passage below and determine if the following statements are true, false, or not given. We will not do this one. We will do some common mistakes to avoid in true, false, or not given kinds of questions. So some common mistakes are overthinking, right? Usually people, when they have not given kind of, it's not given, usually people overthink that, if it's false or is it like just not given. If the passage literally does not have that information, it's not given, right? Don't assume. There is not going to be any inference in reading like this, where you will have to infer. And if the information is just not there, it's not there. Don't infer and don't overthink about it. Misreading keywords. So pay attention to key details in the statement, because there are keywords that can be literally misread, right? So make sure, even if you're just focusing on the keywords, you read the whole sentence properly. Answering based on your own knowledge. Do not base anything or assume anything or just do things based on what you know. Just like focus on the passage itself, not on what you know. And don't spend too much time. I mean, just don't spend a lot of time thinking about it, right? Just make your best guess. Even if you don't know the questions, you feel that this is something that you're really, really stuck at, I would suggest go ahead, right? Go ahead, come back to it later on, but don't get fixated on it. So now we will do I would say an activity. So the history of electric cars, the development of electric cars can be tracked traced back to the 19th century when inverters first began experimenting with electric power vehicles. In fact, in the late 1800s, electric cars were more popular than gasoline powered cars, as they were easier to operate and didn't require manual cranking like early gasoline cars. However, with the discovery of vast petroleum reserves and the mass production of gasoline cars by companies like Ford in the early 20th century, electric vehicles were largely abandoned. It wasn't until the late 20th century, as concerns over pollution and fossil fuel depletion grew, that electric cars saw a resurgence, right? So, pollution and fossil fuel depletion, those were the two causes. In 1900, several car manufacturers began experimenting with hybrid models, right? That combined gasoline and electric power, which led to the development of fully electric cars in the 21st century. Today, electric vehicles are once again gaining popularity, driven by advances in battery technology, environmental concerns, and the rising cost of gasoline. However, despite the improvement in the electric car technology, several challenges remain. One of the biggest barriers to widespread adoption is the lack of charging infrastructure. While urban areas have started to build charging stations, rural areas are still significantly undeserved. Additionally, the initial cost of electric vehicles remain higher than that of traditional gasoline cars, though long-term savings on fuel and maintenance may offset this. Right? Now we just got a general idea, and we now know about gasoline cars versus the electric cars and hybrid cars. Where are all these things mentioned? Now moving on to the questions. Electric cars were more popular than gasoline cars in the late 1800s. Yes, it is true. Why? Because the passage clearly states that in the late 1800s, electric cars were more popular than gasoline powered cars, right? So electric cars were more popular than gasoline cars. Electric vehicles became widely available in rural areas due to advancement in charging infrastructure. So it is talking about rural areas. But before, we read that rural areas are still significantly undeserved, right? Means that there is no infrastructure as such. The rising cost of gasoline has discouraged car manufacturers from investing in electric vehicles. So it's not given. The passage mentions that the rising cost of gasoline is one reason why electric vehicles are gaining popularity. But it does not say whether or not this has discouraged car manufacturers from investing in them. Right? So it does not say anywhere that because of this, car manufacturers are not manufacturing and they're not investing. So that is how you do it. It was just a small example, but once we get to the real tests and mock tests and all, we will see how it is, going forward. So there are some tips for improving accuracy. Practice skimming and scanning. Again, the more practice you will do of reading, skimming, and scanning, the more information you will be able to, retain. Focus on synonyms and paraphrasing. Again, synonyms are super important. Vocab is really important. Paraphrasing and finding keywords is important, right? Read the passage thoroughly. So while you're skimming, when you go back to the particular passage where that information is, read that part carefully. And stay calm and focused. It's really important to stay calm during the exams because panic and feeling rushed often leads to, bad answers. So these are a few tips. And I would suggest you can pair up with a partner, you can do it alone, you can read the questions, you can try to solve true, false, not given kinds. And that's pretty much it. So for today's lesson, we learned some strategies for answering true, false, and not given questions. We discussed some common mistakes which helped us improve the accuracy. And we practiced with reading passages to apply those strategies, right? We practiced one reading passage and we applied that strategy. I gave you the explanations for it. Now, your homework could be that you can go ahead and find a reading passage like this, which is solely based on true, false, and not given kind of questions. I think you can find the resources online, and it would be really easy for you to solve these kind of questions and practice them. So that is pretty much it for me today. I hope you're able to do it. And if you still feel that you have any kinds of doubts, you can just come back and I'll be really happy to help.